So, recording in progress. Thank you so much for inviting us. We are very happy to be here with you for 2 hours today and talking about the art of collaborating. That's something that we love to talk about and love to think about. So we are really looking forward to this. So we are I think we will just present ourselves a little bit so that you know where we come from when talking about collaboration and collaborative practice. And Anna, maybe we just start with presenting you.
All right.
Because I'm Carolina Bothnia and this is Anna Sigmark, my colleague, and it's actually just 2 of us in Länka Consulting. So this is the whole company sitting here. So can you say something about your background and why you got so interested in this collaboration thing?
Yes, I can do that. Yes, Caroline and I have been working for more than 10 years with collaboration practice. But before that, I worked as a consultant evaluating different collaboration projects. And even before that, I worked for a very long time with the local and regional development. And it was very much about partnerships, developing different societal issues together. And then I worked for a long time with cluster and network development, and that was also very much about different organizations trying to develop different things together. And I worked also 3 years in transnational cooperation in the Baltic Sea region with different projects. I can imagine it's a little bit like yours. And I was, during that time, I also got even more engaged in collaboration because it's so much potential in collaboration, but it can also be difficult sometimes. You can sit there and everybody is coming in with different perspectives and competencies. And I got really engaged in how can we help move collaboration projects forward. So that is my background and my interest. And what about yours?
Yeah, so I've been working as a management consultant for many years, and before we started Länka, I was working within organizations with organizational development and leadership development and leadership coaching and so on. And I'm very interested in theories and methods that really can help us doing things better or in a more meaningful way, maybe. But when I then first got involved in these collaboration processes that happen between organizations, I realized that that requires something different from us, and those concepts we have from within organizations don't really work in this in-between area. So that really triggered my interest, and we have been since then, because that was our common interest actually, and then we started about 10 years ago to really deep dive into this competence area about collaboration practice. So we have been since then talking with a lot of experts and researchers all over the world, and we have an ongoing learning discussion, you could say, with each other. And we are still very fascinated about what we realize when we are in these settings, and that it is very complex, and that's why we are talking about the art of collaborating, because it requires a lot of skills and understandings, and we are trying to or we are meeting a lot of practitioners in our trainings. So we are providing open trainings and meet a lot of people like you leading complex collaboration processes, and we learn a lot from that. So we try to translate theory and methods into something that is really easy to use actually in practice, and are very inspired by this question. What does successful collaboration actually look like, and how can we lead and manage these processes in a better way or in a meaningful way? So we are and what we also try to do is to spread knowledge about this. So what we see and learn from our work, we try to put into books, and also we have a podcast, Art of Collaborating, where we speak and talk to experts and researchers, and just try to look at this collaboration competence area from very different perspectives also. So the podcast is mainly in Swedish, but we have some episodes in English, and we have just collected them here for you to make it easy for you to access them. And this is actually it's great for us to be here with you today to speak English. We're not so used to do that, but it's great because we are actually right now translating our first book into English. So we are also trying to be more international actually in our work. But we will now go into what we're talking about today. But we are going to talk about collaboration as a strategic way of working, and why do we call it that, and how do we understand collaboration, and why is it important for us to understand what characterizes collaboration. And then we are going to go into this typical challenges when we meet between organizations or across boundaries. And we are also going to talk a little bit about success factors when we are collaborating. And of course, this is a very tiny part of everything that we could talk about. Our open trainings are 6 days long, so we have a lot of other things to talk about too, but we have picked out something that we think is interesting for these 2 hours. We start, and we normally do that. We start sessions like this with a check-in, and that is also for you to get into the room and just talk a little bit with each other in this group, and the question that you can talk about when you go into the breakout room soon is, what do you consider being easy or difficult when you collaborate? Because we think that you have a lot of experience, and that would be interesting just to get a feeling of where you are in this. So maybe we just illustrate how you can talk in your breakout rooms. So like, Anna, what do you think is easy or difficult, or what do you think is easy?
Easy, I think it's easy to sort of see the potential in collaboration, that we can really work together and create something good and new, and that there's a lot of knowledge in the system, and there's a lot of resources. And I also think it's easy to be motivated by collaboration. What do you think, if you answer the question, what do you think is difficult in collaborating?
Yeah, because when you say it's easy to be motivated, I think that I agree. It's easy to be motivated and to start maybe a collaboration process. I can think that is very inspiring and very, meaningful in a way. But then I think it's difficult when you come further into the process and you start to realize that everyone has actually a very different view on the same topic, or you realize that the others don't really understand what I want to say here, or getting into that process when you don't feel listened to or something. And that is very complex in these processes. So it's difficult to navigate. What are we actually talking about here? What do we need to talk about? That is more difficult, I think. So and we could talk about this for years, but now it's your turn. Welcome everyone back from your rooms. I'm just wondering, or we are a little bit curious what you talked about. So I will just ask some of you what you talked about in your group, and then I will just say one name, and then maybe you can say something, and when you think that someone else in the group should say something, then you just say that. So if I, for example, ask Malena Sandal, you were in a group with Daniel and Solveig. Would you like to tell us about what you talked about? What is difficult or easy?
Hello, Daniel here. It was only me and Solveig in the...
Aha, okay. So I managed to pinpoint exactly the person that was not in the room. Okay. So Daniel, would you like to say something?
Yes, of course. Solveig also had some comments, but positive in Sweden to samverka, to cooperate is a positive thing. And I guess that makes it more easy to cooperate if everyone wants to cooperate. The difficulties maybe is expectations, to know what the other participants' expectations are, and also to be clear with what you want and what you're saying, and to be present, to not be away for 5 meetings and come in with your opinions too late.
Yeah, interesting. And you said that it's positive in Sweden. I'm just curious, is it different in Finland, for example? Is it?
No, not in my opinion, at least.
No. What do you call it in Finland, samverkan?
Yhteistyö.
Okay. So you have a word for it at least.
Yes.
That's good. Thank you. And then I will ask another person I could ask, for example, Pernilla Lindström.
Yes, we mostly focused on what's difficult. And we talked about if you have different backgrounds, you might speak different languages, so to say. And I don't mean one speak English and one speak Swedish, but it might be difficult to understand each other. And we're not so used to trying to make a profit. And if you work with someone who always thinks about making a profit, it can be very difficult.
Yeah, so it's a different kind of logical frames, or
yeah, exactly,
and forces that you are embedded in a way.
Yes.
Yeah, interesting. Did anyone talk about when it's easy? If I ask, for example, Jessica Lundmark, did you talk about when it's easy? Now we don't hear you, Jessica, because you are muted.
Yeah, mostly not, but yeah, when you're a smaller group, it's easier, but maybe more boring and less developing. But of course, what
you can also say what is difficult if that was your main.
Who else in my group today?
Yeah, do you want to add something, the other ones in the group?
Okay, we actually said that it's hard to find easy ways to do things. But we spoke about we spoke about the planning from the beginning, that you actually know where you're going and you have a plan for the communication from the beginning, so you have your questions that you want answered. That will make it easier in the end. But we also said that it's never gonna be totally easy for everyone, because as we said before, we speak different languages, we have different understanding of the subject in order. So yeah, communication is always a key.
Yeah, interesting. And that's, it's so nice to hear you talking about this. I won't ask everyone here, but does anyone really want to say something, to add something to this illustration that Anna is doing here with easy or difficult?
Maria Luna var här, kunde säga någonting. Jag pratar gärna svenska.
Ja.
Är det okej?
Yes.
Jag representerar en stiftelse och det där ingen stor sådan. Och vi tycker att det är lätt att samarbeta med andra föreningar, lokala föreningar, också med myndigheter. Vi har samarbetat bland annat med Gränsbevakningen och Sjöräddningssällskapet och frivilliga brandkåren och sådana. Och där är det ganska lätt. Men att Det som jag ser som en utmaning är att när man är en liten ideell stiftelse att samarbeta med större företag, alltså näringslivet. Där är det svårt, för där näringslivet lägger inte sin tid på sånt som inte direkt har nytta av, och då är det svårt att hitta de där nästa målen.
Yeah. Thank you. Interesting. So it also can depend on what kinds of organization collaborate, and that could be easy or more difficult. Thank you very much. We are actually now we are heading into the first part of our presentation, and we are going to talk a little bit about what is how can we understand collaboration as a practice or as a strategic way of working across boundaries. So that is what we are going to talk about now.
Collaboration as a strategic way of working across boundaries. So of course, and I know that you must probably think that collaboration is important as you're working in a collaboration project. But just a few whys about why collaboration is so important. It's important, of course, because of consumer needs, and of course when it comes to citizens' perspectives, because it's really hard to reach those needs from one organization. And of course, it's also about resilience. We all know what's happening in the world. We have to collaborate in new ways to find new solutions. It can be about a lot of things right now. Innovation is, of course, a big why. When we meet from different organizations and cross borders, we can also find really new solutions together. Handling complexity is, of course, another reason, and wicked issues, different societal issues that we can't solve if we're just one organization or actor. And it can also, of course, be about resource efficiency. We can do more when we collaborate. We can find new, more effective and efficient solutions. And of course, the issue of social capital. When we work together, when we create meaning, when we learn to know each other, we also develop trust, which is, of course, also an important why in our societies. So there's a lot of whys about why is collaboration so important. But collaboration is, of course, also about boundaries and about crossing boundaries, which makes it also more difficult. And what are those boundaries about? There could be, of course, cultural boundaries. There could be organizational boundaries. There could be language boundaries, of course, and also the issue of competence boundaries. When we worked for a long time in one field, we can also create a deep knowledge and expertise in one area. And then when we're going to collaborate with others, that can sort of also create a boundary in itself. So it's really interesting, of course, how to work with these boundaries and how to really develop ways within this area. But still there also is, of course, this big potential and huge potential in combining our different perspectives and resources. So we see collaboration as this sort of also big potential. If we're able to combine our different knowledge areas and different perspectives and different experiences, we can also find really new ways of working. When we worked with collaboration during these years, we really wanted to have our own definition about collaboration. And what, from our perspective, what we see is that collaboration is really about working together when we come from significantly different perspectives. It's not about just working with your own colleague in your own department or something. It's about working with people from different organizations, from different areas of knowledge, from different disciplines, from different sectors, from maybe also significantly different parts of an organization. So we come from we have different worldviews coming into collaboration. But it also implies that we really make use of these different perspectives and different competencies and resources towards a specific purpose, so that we have this intention to really take care of the different experiences and knowledge areas. So what we see is that it should be more than a buzzword. It should be that we really collaborate, and that it leads to a new understanding of the question in focus, that it leads to learning, that it also leads to more sort of innovative thinking, and also a new kind of acting in a specific question. And it might be something that we've heard before, but we think that collaboration should really be about 1 + 1 being 3. That we sort of really make use of the potential in collaboration, because that's also why we're collaborating, that we want to do something more or something new. And we often show this, you could call it a ladder or level of multi-stakeholder collaboration. And you can see it also as a sort of a coordination process. It's a simple picture, and it's not this easy, of course, in reality, as we heard in the check-in, but we think it's an illustrative picture of what needs to happen. And in this picture, you can see that, I mean, there's different levels of collaborating, and the first level is the meeting place. And that is when we meet and network, and we sort of exchange information with each other. And it's sort of more of a loose collaboration. And then we come into the second level, which is a deeper conversation. A deeper conversation, of course, that we explore things together. We try to learn more about each other. We try to learn more about the issue that we're going to collaborate on, and we sort of develop this deeper understanding on where we're heading, which leads to the third step, which is more like we have this sense of a more common direction. We started to know more about each other and about the cooperation issue, and we develop a way forward together. And then it comes to the fourth step, which is coordination. That is when we start to more practically coordinate with each other, and we find new ways of working. We start taking steps together. And co-action is the fifth level, which is more that we have either developed very established structures on how to collaborate, or that we're so coordinated that we really go in the same direction. And we think this picture is rather good, just to have in mind that collaboration is a process, and that it also takes quite a lot of conversations to really start to have a more practical way of doing new things together. And it might also be so that in a collaboration projects, some people and some organizations might think that it's enough that we sort of just meet and exchange information, and then others might think that it's really important that we come to this co-action stage. So this is an illustration also that can be good to have in mind, and it can also be something that we can discuss together in a collaboration. So sometimes we might experience that there's a lot of dialogues and meetings when we collaborate, but that is also something that it is needed. We use the word sense making when we talk about collaborating, and it's about sort of really understanding each other and understanding how to go forward in collaborating. So that is important. Sometimes we think there's too many meetings, but that is also very important. But it's of course also important about what we're speaking about when we actually meet. We often also show this picture. This is a bit of a black and white picture, of course, but we're trying just to illustrate the difference between working within an organization and working between organizations. I think everyone is quite used to work within our own organization, and within our organizations there might be a certain way of working. We might, for instance, have a focus on our own parts and our own goals and our own departments and so on. So you sort of get trained at having a focus on your own part. There is often a hierarchy, at least in big organizations. You develop clear roles and responsibilities and standardized working procedures in organizations, and when you worked in an organization for a while, you sort of know how to work in that organization, you know how decisions are made and so on. And there's often also a systematic planning and follow-up, and it might be on a yearly basis or at different points during a year. And when you're project managing something, you often have a mandate to do so. But when you see this picture on the right, working between organizations, we see that there's a lot of other capabilities and abilities to focus on, because we have to work in a different way. We have to sort of take a more holistic view on things, instead of just being interested in our own part. We have to build trust very much in relationships, because we can't steer it in a traditional way. It's very much about learning together and testing things in order to find out what to do and how to do it. And we have to be better at integrating differences and integrating different perspectives. And it's also very much about mobilizing. We have to be sort of engaged in collaboration in order to do more and in order to step out of our silos and want to do more. And it's also very much about sense making, as we talked about. We have to understand things in a new way in order to be able to work in a new way. So with this picture, we just want to illustrate also that there might be different capabilities and abilities in working with collaboration, and that we have to maybe train more and focus more on these abilities. So very often we see maybe that one might think that when we have the experts in the room, or we have the experts in a project, then we might think that, wow, now it's all right, now we can just start to collaborate. But we think that we really need to learn how to manage and lead these kinds of projects forward. It's not just enough to sort of gather in a room and just say, let's do this together. And I think that is also what you mentioned in the check-in, that it also might be difficult sometimes. So that is why we also have been focusing quite a lot on the how. How can we make these differences meet and really be productive together? So now I have been speaking a lot, but I will just mention the typical pitfalls. One pitfall that we see is that we work with collaboration projects as we usually do with project management, for instance. We think that we can just work in the same way. And that a pitfall is also that we believe that collaboration works by itself. Only the right experts are in the room, so to speak. And we believe that everyone that collaborates can collaborate. So that is something that is sort of, common pitfalls. And success factors, we would say, is that the insight that collaboration is complex and difficult, and that a special understanding and competence is needed in those projects. And also another success factor is to really talk about collaboration as a way of working. To talk about also in the collaboration group or in the collaboration project, how will we succeed with collaboration in this question that we're collaborating around, and what do we need to succeed in our way of collaborating, and also how can we follow up that we are succeeding in collaboration as a way of working. So to put focus on the special way of working. And now it's time for you again. We will invite you into breakout rooms. You will be 4 people in each room. Just talk about what comes to mind. You've been listening to me now, and what are your thoughts? And maybe also about your own collaboration. So the question was your thoughts about collaboration as a way of working. I will not have the time to follow up on every group, but if I just ask a few people, what are your thoughts when listening also to the presentation? If I take the group Jessica, Malena, Maria, or Therese, and Therese, if I ask Jessica, what were you talking about in your breakout session? I can't hear you now, Jessica.
No, this time also. Okay. I said to the group, the best project I've been in is the projects that come from the things you really want to do, that comes from like happiness, or what to say, not the ones that, okay, we should do this project and yeah, let's just do it. It's really hard if no one want to do it. It's just your organization say you should.
Yeah.
So the best project is when everybody wants to do this and yeah, give the effort it needs.
Yeah, so there's
to be a
motivation.
good collaboration all the way through.
Yeah, so there's really motivation to really do the project and to collaborate. Thank you so much. If I ask another group, there was a group with Helvi, Mats, Pernilla, and Terry. If I ask Terry, what are your thoughts? Or what did you discuss in your breakout room?
Let me try to remember. I suppose the one of the points was that you need to be aware of your blind spots, your own and others, I guess.
Yeah.
They can be blind spots that you can't sort of anticipate even. That you just have to react accordingly when something happens.
Yeah, yeah.
And another thing was probably the different sort of organizational cultures that you have to adapt to, and you probably don't even recognize or know in advance.
No, you don't know very much in advance when you start collaborating about the different cultures. Yeah, very interesting. If I ask also, there was a group with Inge, Johanna, and Pernilla. Inge, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so we talk about the different that from the beginning we don't know what the other parts want in the project. So often it start with a well definition, but it's not be much time, not that we start with. And that's just going through the culture in the different parts.
Yeah.
And that's the way to finance and so on.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. And then there was a group, I think, with Annika, Gunilla, and P.O. Grönberg. If I ask perhaps Annika.
Hello.
Hello.
Greetings from Vaasa in Finland. Yes, we were thinking about the collaboration in a way that, first of all, that someone needs to take the lead, and the process must be led that it doesn't help that you just put the people in the same room like you showed the picture.
Yeah.
And someone must take the lead of the process, but also adapt in the changes coming in the process. So the leading needed. And then we were talking about the resources. That, for example, I was thinking in some projects or development that there is not, for example, process resources, money for all the organizations. So this affects how much time and effort they sometimes will put into the project and into the collaboration. So you don't always know that how much you can ask for someone to put some time for this project, for example, and this must be somehow cleared to get forward.
Yeah, really interesting. That sort of collaboration needs a lot of management and process management, but still there might not be resources always for that. So that's a really interesting.
And then in this same thing, so when we have projects that there are companies and then there are development organizations, schools, universities, so they all have different kind of employees who have their salary from the project or whatever, and then there are companies who think that, okay, what is the output of this in maybe in the money wise, that what is my income then in quite short time schedule or something. So this is kind of interesting also in this kind of company cultural actors projects type what we are having here, for example.
Very interesting, and we will come into that too, the different time frames, for instance, when you go into collaboration. We are taking a small break now, and then we will continue talking about the difficulties in collaborating and also success factors. So if we just take a break, and that we are back at 10:05, so 9 minutes break, if that's okay, and then we will continue talking about collaboration.
So, welcome back. That was 10 minutes, or at least 9 maybe. So now we're back for the second part of this of these 2 hours. And we will now get into this, the difficulties and challenges when we meet between different contexts. And I think you have been mentioning it a lot already, examples from your experiences when different kinds of organizations meet, and that they have these different missions and different cultures and so on, and that is difficult. So we think it's important to really let that sink in a way and find ways to handle that. But the first thing is just to realize that we have everyone, all of us, we have our context, we bring our context with us. So we are, when we say something, so in this picture you see the one person says, to really understand what I'm saying, you need to understand my context. And that is so true, because we can't say anything or it's very difficult for us to make sense of things when we, in a appropriate way, when we don't know anything about the other's context. Because we have the tendency to interpret things based on our own context. So this is a very, very important insight we need to bring with us, because it means that we need to talk maybe in different ways, or we need to put time and effort into understanding each other. So in this picture you see that the context is illustrated as the mission, for example, in our organization, the role we have, the language that you have been talking about, the language that we use, the different words and terms and what they mean for us in that context, the knowledge we have, the experiences we have, and the ways of working and the ways we are making decisions, for example. So what happens when we meet between different contexts is that we can talk about we have to make a decision, for example, but we can mean totally different things with saying that. So, and that is very important to remember. And what we can see is that in very many collaboration processes, we really miss this. Because and you were mentioning that too, the thing with the resources, and we don't have so much time maybe, and we don't have so much, we can't put so much effort into it. And that's a pity, because we could come so much further if we put a little bit more effort into this. So and another thing is important to remember in this, and that because that's also interesting, that when we meet, we could maybe say that, yeah, but if we are only interested in each other, it could work, couldn't it? Or we could like, maybe we think that we understand the other's contexts also. But here, something happens here that is also interesting to have in mind, and that is something that is called autopoiesis, and that is a really difficult word in a way, but I mean, we are meeting between different languages here too, and I mean, there are different words, and we like this word because it illustrates something that is happening with us human beings, and it comes from two biologists actually, called Maturana and Varela. They wrote a book, I think it was in the 80s, called The Tree of Knowledge, and they describe this phenomenon as something that is, if you look at systems, biological systems, you can see that they are organizing themselves as a whole and as a unity and as something that makes meaning in itself, as a whole. And if we use that when we look at us as human beings, we can see that we always, as people, we are creating meaning of what we are experiencing or reading or being a part of. And that process of making sense of things is actually can be called an autopoietic process. So it's self, and poiesis is creating. So we are always creating and making sense of things. And that is, of course, based on the culture we come from, the language we speak, our age, our situation in life at the moment, our work situation, and so on. But it's important just to remember that this is always happening. So now at the moment when I'm sitting here and talking, I'm making sense of what I'm talking about, and you are making sense of what I'm talking about. And if I asked you now, in every one of you, what do you think that I'm talking about right now, then we would hear very different perspectives on that. So this is also very important to remember, that when we are sitting in meetings, we used to say that we are never participating in the same meeting. And that is because we have so diverse perspectives in the same meeting. And all these different perspectives make perfect sense in their own kind of unity or wholeness. So in this example, the one person says, yeah, you know what we talked about the last time, that was in our last meeting was blah, blah, blah. And the other one says, what? That was really not what we were talking about. I remember that completely differently. And that is important then, to not fall into the pitfall that we think that one of these two is right and the other one is wrong, and because that is what is happening a lot of times, that we are trying to convince each other of our own autopoiesis, you could say, instead of realizing that, okay, your opinion and your perspective makes perfect sense in your world, so I need to be interested actually in why does that make sense for you. So that is a kind of shift that we need to make, and that is can be quite challenging, because we have a pattern also in our conversations and in our culture, that we want to explain what our perspective is, and we want to convince each other. And another very interesting thing is that we think that in our own autopoiesis, we think that this is the truth for everyone. So I think that what I remember from this meeting, that's the truth. And the other ones are wrong if they remember something else. And that is also very human to think of it that way. So in collaboration processes, this phenomenon becomes very obvious in a way, because as we see in this picture, for example, when we sit in a meeting and we're talking about maybe how to proceed in this collaboration and how to go forward, then one person maybe thinks that, okay, we really have to act fast on this. We have this opportunity, we need to act fast. And then the other one says, oh, no, I don't think so. I think we really need to slow down and take some time for exploring further, just to make it really grounded this before we start to act. And another one says that, okay, but we need really immediate results. We need to show results. The other one says, no, we are very much more interested in long-term achievements and so on. So we have very different approaches. And so not only we speak different languages, and so there is a lot of maybe misunderstandings in the language part of it, but we also have very different ways of approaching something and ways of working. And that, of course, when we are sitting there together, all of us want to do it the way we are used to do it. So this is also something that is very, how to say it, it's a strong force in collaboration that we need to work with. So the other thing that is happening with this autopoiesis is that we are sitting in our kind of bubble then, and we are trying to make sense, and I'm also trying to make sense of all the other ones that say different things. But I'm trying to make sense of it in my own bubble. And that's the problem, because I can't make sense of it in my own bubble, because my bubble is a different bubble. So we need to find ways to reach out to each other in another way. And we have a lot of tools for doing that. But one very easy and an easy trick or method is what we call double click. And it's very easy because every one of us is used to double clicking on the computer. So we are double clicking on something when we want to go further and want to explore more, for example, or come to the next site and so on. But we can also double click on each other's words, and that's what we mean with this. So for example, if somebody is talking about sustainability in this example, so one person representing one organization is talking about, we are really, sustainability is really important for us, and we have a lot of processes and we put a lot of effort in that. Then what happens then is that everyone else in the room is in their own autopoiesis. They are making up in their mind what that person means with sustainability. And we make up our minds based on our own context. So probably that's wrong. So what we need to do is actually to double click on that word and ask the person, okay, wait a minute, just so I understand what you mean when you say sustainability in your context. Can you give an example for what does that mean in your context? So that I don't get confused with what it means in my context. And that is a very important mindset and also way of talking about it, that we can put words on that probably I will misunderstand what you are saying now because I come from another context, so that we can talk about that and make that kind of easy to talk about in that way, so that it doesn't seem like I don't trust you or something. I want to know more what you mean, but that we can do it in a nice way. So we are, we can talk a little bit more about double click, but what it really helps us to do is to get more curious about the other's perspective. And it prevents us a little bit from just being caught in our own bubble. because that's what we are doing per default. Actually, we are trying to make sense of it in our own mind. But before we're starting to do that, we could just force ourselves to just double click on the other one, and then a shift happens, because then we are getting curious, and it's difficult for us to be curious in a natural way, actually, often in these processes. So we actually want you now to go just for some 5 minutes into breakout rooms and just talk about try to find some typical words and terms that you use in your context, and that you know can create misunderstandings when talking with people from other contexts. So just try to find some. It doesn't have to be so many, and it would be great if some of you could just write them down, so that when we come back to the group, you can just say that words. So 5 minutes just to try to find typical words that you use in your context. I'm just asking some of you, maybe I ask David and Jenny, did you find any words, typical words? That
we find a lot of words.
Yeah.
I can start. I just what we're talking about in Swedish. You have two different sorts of collaboration. You got samarbete and samverkan.
Yes.
And they are, I don't know, samverkan for me is you have a goal, and samarbete can be something fluid. So when we talk about collaboration in Swedish, it's perhaps that's something to double click. What do you mean by samarbete or samverkan?
Yeah.
And action.
That's a very good idea, and exactly because exactly what do we mean when we say collaboration or cooperation or whatever word we use? Actually, the important thing is, as you say, it's not like there is a correct definition somewhere, and but the important thing is to understand that, okay, everyone has his or her own interpretation of this word.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do we have any other words that you typically use? Does anyone
have some words, I think.
Yeah, David.
He wants me to talk a bit. Yeah, we were also talking about buzzwords in different sectors. And I was talking about what we say in the museum sector, like, of course, the very important here, cultural heritage. What do we mean with that? Of course, we should talk about that. And also, I used to use the words kunskapsuppbyggnad and kunskapsförmedling. I don't really know how to say it in English, maybe like knowledge building or like that, but maybe that's very hard for people from other sectors to understand.
Yeah. So, but when we just take that example of cultural heritage, what is that in your context?
Did you ask me now?
Yes, because you said it.
Oh no. Yeah, the definition is very broad. I think we work with it as a very broad definition that that means that everything that we as humans create and save for the future is like the cultural heritage. But it could be material or immaterial. And I think when we speak about it, we should always try to explain the definition, because in different contexts it could be a very betyda något väldigt speciellt, något väldigt snävt också när man pratar om det i ett särskilt sammanhang.
Yeah, it could mean something very specific.
Yes.
And but I'm also curious because you said it can be material and immaterial. What do you mean with that? What is material, for example, and what is immaterial?
Yeah, like what we save in the museums, like in our collections. That's often material cultural heritage, things, buildings like that. And the immaterial could be like stories, like
Rituals.
yeah, rituals, things that are not material.
Songs, stories,
Yeah.
maybe you said stories.
Great. Thank you. And this was also just an example of that we can always double click or try to understand more. So when you said like material and immaterial, of course I can make up something in my mind, but it's better for me actually to double click on it, because then I get to, then you say things like rituals and songs, and I would never think of that maybe. I would think of something else. And this is also just an example of when we meet from very different contexts, it's so easy that we, you know, I can experience that on my own when I meet new people and we are together a whole day maybe, and the next time I meet them maybe 3 weeks later, I have forgotten exactly what they are doing or what they were working with, or because it's not my context, so it's difficult to take that in, and that's why we need to double click, because then it becomes a little bit more not concrete, you say, but a little bit more plastic, a little bit more like I can understand song, I can understand ritual, but immaterial cultural heritage is difficult for me to make up something about. It's so abstract. So that was just an example. So thank you very much for that. And we just close that now with the double click, but just also we want to emphasize that it's so important to keep that in mind, that we think very much that we understand what others are talking about, but we usually don't actually. And we also are very convinced by our own perspective, or we think that that is the truth. And we need to have that in mind and to kind of do this shift and be more curious about the others, and to ask about, what do you mean by this? Can you share a little bit more about that so that I understand it? And maybe we are afraid also to show that we don't know, but that is a very, very important thing. Yes, Annika, do you have a thought? And now you muted yourself instead of...
Okay. I was, yeah, okay. I was online. Yes, you said earlier about this arranging time for getting to know each other. What I have been thinking a lot is that we have such effective type of cultures in a working life that we so often skip this phase. And this is very important in a collaboration, to getting know people and how they are also outside working life. Yeah. And I know that you shouldn't put too much time into that, but it's so important, and so often why we so often skip that. And then the same comes here when someone is you are not probably understanding properly, and you are in your own bubble, and you should ask questions and be more curious, but you skip this also because you just rush in to these things. And if you would do this, if you didn't skip these phases, so many other things would be so much easier in the long run.
Yeah, that's so true. And that's why we think it's important also that we talk about it, and that we make that very conscious, that we are more people that understand these things, because then we maybe can put more effort into this in the beginning. So that is our hope, actually, that we can, by understanding it, really understanding it, then we can also prioritize that more, hopefully. But we will now get into some success factors.
Yes.
we are also rushing this in a way this time, but
yeah. And double click and being curious is, of course, a very important success factor also. And there is a lot of success factors in order to manage and drive forward collaboration projects. But we'll we'll talk about a few of them, and then you will have some time to reflect before we are checking out. So some success factors. And one, of course, and that is connected to what Carolina was saying, is to really be curious about the different contexts, and to be curious about your collaboration partners' contexts. Because when we're collaborating, if we know more about the others and we see more and focus on their resources and their experiences and so on, we can also see the potential in between us. So this part is really important, because therein lies also the potential in collaboration. And how can we do that? And you were saying also that we don't take this time, but if we can take this time, it's really, really valuable time. It doesn't always have to take that long time, because sometimes I've experienced that myself also in international collaboration projects, that after a few years, when you're almost finishing the project, then you're like saying, oh, wow, if I would have known this earlier on, what a potential it would have been. You start to know the collaboration partners after time, but to know it earlier on in the process is really valuable. So one way of doing it is, of course, to maybe arrange interviews with each other. This is just an example of different questions that you can ask each other, like what could be good for us to know about your organization and your work? What knowledge and experiences are you bringing to the table? And what issues are important for you to solve at the moment? And what can collaboration help with that? So really to deliberately bring forward the context. And there are, of course, different ways of doing this. One thing is to talk about it in collaboration meetings, that it's important that we share our context and that we talk about our context. We can use interviews in meetings, that 2 and 2 interview each other. We can check in with a question like, if we can just go around the table and everybody says what's important for them right now, and what are your thoughts about the issue that we are going to speak about, and what is important in your organization. That could be one way. Making study visits, of course, alternating the meeting lead. That can also help us to see the different contexts in another way. Be curious and ask questions. When somebody says something about cultural heritage, for instance, double click and ask, what does that mean in your context? Just to say those words can open up new doors and open up new understandings. And also, of course, to describe your own context. When there is a discussion about something, one can also say, I'm saying this because in my context we see it in this way. So you can also be sort of describing as a collaboration partner. So that is, of course, one success factor, to really bring in context into the collaboration meetings. And then it's also about, of course, the purpose of the collaboration. Sometimes we go into projects and there is a purpose. We don't really spend so much time about discussing the purpose, but that can also be a really good success factor, to make sense about the higher purpose. Because when we're meeting among organizations, we have to sort of lift each other up and talk about the higher purpose of our collaboration, because that can be also a really important driving force for us in order to do more. And this is, of course, not easy conversations, but they are very valuable to just spend some time in a meeting to talk about what is our higher purpose with this project. What are we going to do together that is more than our own purpose, and try maybe to visualize that purpose can also be something that you can bring into the collaboration meetings every time. Our joint purpose is this. And then, of course, it's about this level of ambition, to really also discuss the level of ambition, because different collaboration partners can have different levels of ambition with the project. As one organization might think that it's enough to meet, we can gather information, we can share information. Others might want to really move forward into this question. So we have good experience in just showing this this ladder, or this ladder of ambitions, and just to talk about it in collaboration meetings, but because that makes it visible what we really want with this collaboration. So talk about the ambition and talk about what your ambition is with this collaboration, and make it visible to others. And then, of course, it's the collaboration meetings in themselves, because the meetings are so crucial. Carolina was talking about this autopoiesis, and that we are in our own bubble, and it's really easy to just go into our own perspective and to present things for others. But what we've seen is that engagement and involvement in collaboration meetings are crucial. And there's a lot to say about how to design meetings and how to create involvement, but just a few things in meetings, that how we can design and create meetings that where all perspectives are welcome, that we have some time to double click on each other and to really ask questions. What do you mean by that, and how do you think about this? That there is time to explore differences. And it's really good to have meetings where there's equal time to speak, and that there is also, of course, ways of talking that you also get to listen to each other. We can really recommend, of course, well-designed agendas where you have time for dialogue and that you really think about the most important questions, but also, of course, time for the unexpected, because when we come in with these different perspectives, we also need to have time to really bring up things that we are worried about or that we are frustrated about, and so on. And usually we have like 6 days trainings on this, so this is just sort of a few success factors, and there's a lot of different methods on how to design and conduct meetings in collaboration, and there's also a lot of methods how to design longer processes, but we just have like 2 hours today. But these are a few success factors, and maybe just I'm looking at the watch, if you can have a few minutes, like 7 or 8 minutes in breakout rooms, just to talk about what are your thoughts about these success factors, and how can you maybe make use of them in your collaboration.
So nice to see you all, so many people on the screen, and we are actually coming to an end, and we are going to do a checkout now. And that means that I'm going to ask you, what are your takeaways or new thoughts or questions, or where are you right now when you're checking out from these 2 hours? So I'm just asking you, all of you. I actually wanted to start with you, Hilde, and you have another participant with you. So maybe that's difficult for you now, or it's difficult for you. So then I will give it to Inge. Inge, what are your takeaways or thoughts right now when we are closing this?
Yes, that I really think about this, I must talk with myself what I mean.
Yeah.
Not take all the other subject from the other part of organization, part of company, and found what I mean when I say this in the area I will work with.
Yeah, to be more conscious about how do I say something from my context. Great. Thank you. And Daniel Bejar, or I don't have my glasses on.
Bejar, ja.
What are your thoughts?
Yes, it was a lot of good advices in this lecture. I mean, it can be used on a lot of things when collaborating with people in different situations. So I mean, that's more like general thoughts.
Yeah, your
about
takeaways.
this. Yes, but I mean, it's in different situations it can be used. How you look at things differently.
Yeah, definitely. You can use it very much in your family too, or private relationships,
Yes.
actually. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes.
Nina, what are your thoughts and takeaways?
I think that overall the importance of communication and the way that you are communicating things to others, and just to remember that they have another perspective of the same thing as you.
Yeah, thank you. Erika?
Jag tänker använda ordet dubbelklicka.
Yes.
I thought that was a good word actually to ask once again, what did you mean by that? So I will use that for sure.
Yeah. Great, that's great. And I forgot to say that, but we are actually sometimes when we have workshops and so on with very different organizations coming together for maybe just 2 hours or something, then we use it as a how do you say, spelregel, as a rule for communicating. So we say like, okay, so it's very important that we double click on each other during this meeting. And that is very successful, because then it's like people are not so afraid anymore to ask questions. So that's also a good, good to use in that way. Pernilla.
Yes, I was just, I wanted to put this, whatever, or everything that you've talked about into the context of the project that we're working with, the Bothnia Business Heritage, where we try to create new collaborations between companies and cultural heritage actors. And what you said about putting yourself in someone else's shoes, understanding their context, I think that's really important. For instance, cultural heritage actors are very knowledgeable about their area, and there are a lot of words that they use with ease without thinking about that. If I work at a company with something completely different, I barely know what culture stands for. I have a very hard time even understanding something that where a cultural heritage actor feels like they're clear, and this is short and concise. It can still be understood as, what? I don't understand. There's too much information and so on. Usually if you work at a museum, for instance, you want to put things in a setting. So in order for me to explain what is now, I want to take this historical background with and explain it in this context and so on, which is wonderful. I think that's amazing to be able to do that. But then to also realize that, for instance, someone who's stressed and just wants some fast information at a company, and where companies, as you said earlier, they want to see results, they want to have benefits and gain something. To them it might be frustrating to put it into a bigger context. They might just need to know the source. And I'm not saying one way of communicating is better than the other. I think both are very needed, but just to be aware of each other there, that when I express myself like this, they might take it in a different way than what I'm intending, and they might not even understand my vocabulary.
No, exactly. And that's so important, right? So when we start to learn more about each other context, then we can also understand, what do I need to say and tell from my context, so that they can understand it very well from their context. So we are getting more and more coordinated when we learn more about our context. So that's a good example. Thank you. So I continue the little checkout. So Ann-Sophie, what are your takeaways or thoughts right now?
Oh, many things, but perhaps the importance, if you are cooperative, a lot of people that they really feel that they are on board, the inclusiveness, if I say so, more or less, that you give time to to hear their voices and such things. So it's not one or two persons speaking.
Yeah.
So the inclusiveness, I think, the feeling of this inclusiveness, I think is important.
Thank you. And Annika, what are your takeaways and thoughts?
Lot of things. But I think about this bubble that we are all in, that you must take a prison break from your own bubble and get very curious about other people's opinions and thinking and the context they are coming from.
Thank you. And now the other Annika. I realize now that you are two.
Okay.
Annika,
we are two. It's unusual. No, I was thinking that you should be more curious about other persons and then about their backgrounds and tell them about your backgrounds, because then you can more easily understand each other. Why do you think like that and why do you talk like that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you. And Jenny, what are your takeaways or thoughts?
Yes, I really got a reminder about how important it is to understand other people's perspectives and approaches to be able to cooperate with each other. So very good.
Yeah, and we need to get reminded, right? Because it's so easy to forget about it. Thank you. And David Pettersson.
I think this is what we do now is really important. If you have a meeting and just summing up what you've been through during a meeting, then I suppose you get in contact with other people, how they understand what we've gone through.
Yeah, exactly.
And when I have a meeting, I'm planning to do this every meeting, but in the end, people they're running away. They're going to the next meeting. So it's hard to put people in this situation to think about what has happened.
Yeah.
So it's I have to be better to do that.
Yeah. Great. I wish you good luck, because I can also it resonates with me, because I can see that too, that we are running away to the next thing, and it's so important just to close it also. What have we been doing now, and what are the different views? So thank you. Magdalena, what are your thoughts and takeaways?
I'm very curious about reading your book, actually, because I really want to learn more about this. It's very interesting topic.
Thank you. And Pernilla Lindström.
Yeah, but I've been thinking about how easy it is to assume that you understand what the other people are saying, and that to assume that they are thinking just like you, and to assume that you're striving towards the same goal. And when you assume things, it's so hard to remember to stop and ask questions. And you always need to remember to take that time.
Yeah. Thank you. Terry, what are your takeaways and thoughts?
There are so many excellent points already, but I guess one thing I have been thinking here is that you need to, it's a buzzword, but be mindful during the process to give yourself time to prepare for things and to think about your role. Are you the one that is coordinating the whole thing, or are you an expert that's giving your expert opinion or knowledge? And then also to understand not just the thinking that others are bringing to the table, but their process. How is this thing going to proceed in their organization? What are the steps that they need to do to make something happen? Those kind of things.
Thank you. Tommy, what are your takeaways?
I think it's quite obvious that we need to understand the other people we meet when in our meetings. It's I think it's a quite big problem to have the other, what's the name, deltagare, to have the other people to really explain what they mean and what they want to do.
Yeah, and to help each other explaining, I think also that's important. Yeah. Thank you. Now I see that we have probably a half. Now it's 11 o'clock. So, and we have not finished the checkout with everyone, but I think that it's maybe like 5 people left, or maybe 8. So is it? I of course, if you just need to leave now, that's perfectly okay. But is it okay that we just try to do the finish in maybe 4 minutes for you that can stay? So then we'll do that. Thank you. So now I see, I'm looking at this. Martin, what are your takeaways and thoughts?
At this point, I really can't think of it. Right now, I can't think of anything new to add to all of this. I mean, most of the things that have been discussed during our little meetings have all been brought up and such. I mean, the only thing I can think of is how the only tiny new thing I could add is that even a common language is not enough. I mean, even though you might have people speaking the same language, let's say Swedish, it does not mean that that communication will be automatic, because we have different dialects, we have different just different ways of speaking and reasoning, like between Sweden and Finland, and even within Sweden and Finland.
Yeah, right. Thank you. Mats, what are your thoughts?
That we should be prepared to explain what we mean, and without getting disturbed by why others don't understand what you mean directly.
Thank you. Solveig.
Ja, tack. Yes, I think others have said it also. Be curious with others and inform about my own position in the meeting, why I'm here.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. And the other Solveig.
Yeah, Beatrice also.
Yeah.
Well, I will bring up something that we are discussing in 2 other breakout rooms actually, and this is something that I have learned in a lot of team building, and it's this: how do you gain information? What kind of person are you? Are you an audio, or are you a visual, or are you a cognitive person? How do you take in information? Because if, for example, as I said, Daniel also was that if you have a visual person or 2 visual persons talking, we just get them the ideas from, and we are talking and we are filling in other words, and everybody and we both understand, while the 3rd member in the team maybe is auditive and can't understand a thing, because it's somebody that needs a list or something like this and I think this is really a catastrophic situation, because none of the information is coming through.
Yeah.
So I think that we also need to learn this.
Yeah, great. Thank you. A good thing to think of. Jessica.
Yeah, maybe a repetition, but this context check is just perfect, and because it's really hard to get in contact between huge bubbles, and we are in this very interesting project, as Pernilla Howard said, Bothnia Business Heritage, to get in contact with companies. That's another bubble from the cultural heritage sector, and it's the challenge we're in, and we're gonna bring this day with us and work with it, get in contact with the companies. Yeah, and talk about it more in our group, I hope.
Thank you. Daniel.
Okay. Yes. So I think to have different kind of meetings. I'm also working in the Bothnia Business Heritage project, and I think some meetings we need to make a lot of decisions and almost rush through. And but it's important also to have meetings just to check up on everyone. What is going on? What are they thinking? What is happening next? And to have different kind of meetings.
Yeah. Thank you. Now I don't see everyone, but for example, P.O. Grönberg, are you there? What are your takeaways?
Yes, I think I was also picking up on this, the double clicking, in a sense, and like I'm working in the project as well from Luleå University of Technology, and to try to see the cooperators' perspectives in a way. I think it's a very important thing. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Mikaela.
Ja, jag tar nog med mig det här också med dubbelklicka som har sagts tidigare. Det var nog, jag har inte på det sättet något mycket nytt att komma med här. Att allting har nog egentligen blivit sagt som jag har tagit med mig, och att våga fråga helt enkelt. För att man blir kanske lite rädd att man ska som antas veta kontexten och att man känner sig lite dum kanske när man frågar, för att det är ju så självklart för dem vad de jobbar med och deras kontext. Så att våga fråga och dubbelklicka, och att just det här att bara, som ni också sa, att ni introducerar redan i början ett möte med att säga just att man ska dubbelklicka och att man öppnar upp för det just helt enkelt. Att det tar jag med mig.
Thank you. And then we have, I think, 2 or 3 left. Johanna, what are your takeaways?
I tried to say something new.
You don't need to say something new. You can say
but the importance of communication and being able to listen to each other and actually try to understand what they are saying and what they're perhaps not saying. But also the communication is important in the meeting, but also when you're communicating what you said in the meeting to the rest of your organization. So that the information doesn't stay just in between the persons involved in the project, but also with the organization as a whole.
Yes, thank you. And Pernilla.
Do you mean me? I think I already spoke.
Oh, because I saw your picture and I didn't recognize you. So, okay, thank you. So Maria.
Ja, jag funderar på att om man har en träff eller ett möte, att det skulle vara bra att man redan i början kommer överens om vad målet är med den här träffen. Och sen just det här dubbelklicka tycker jag är helt fantastiskt, så det kommer jag att ta med mig. Men sen också att man i slutet av mötet går igenom vad man har kommit fram till, att man förstår att det är det här det här vill vi. Och just det här som Johanna tog fram, att man tar det vidare i sin egen organisation, för det är nog jättesvårt. Vi vet alla det här då man har varit någonstans som man är entusiastisk, och så kommer man sen med de där entusiastiska idéerna och ingen orkar lyssna, att nu har hon varit igen på något möte. Så det är en stor utmaning.
Thank you. Have I forgotten someone now who hasn't said something? I hope that I have not.
I can say something now. I have better time as Hilde.
Yeah, Hilde. What are your takeaways?
Yeah, but my takeaway is to take time to create trust and to see the value. That's my 3 checkpoints. It's time, trust, and value.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you, all of you, that you stayed a little bit longer. We're sorry that we're forced to do that, but that was really nice that you could hear all of you. And it has been very, very nice for us to meet you, and all these questions that are coming up. So interesting. So we are still inspired.
Yeah.
And
we will send the presentation to Magdalena.
Vad bra.
Yeah, so that you can get access to that, all of you. And so we wish you a very nice day.
Yeah, and a good collaboration forward.
Yeah, good collaboration processes.
Thank you so much for this.
And from the project, we want to say, yes, thank you for this. We appreciate that you came to help us learn a few new things, and mostly also remind us of things that we might know, but that we might not always take into consideration. All right, but with that, we want to say thank you for today, and have a great rest of your day and week.